I'm here, you're here.
No, I'm just saying, it's always the same. It's three guys.
Okay, Chaf Bet Amud Bet.
Where the other guys did not with Pesach? I'm saying we're missing quite a few guys, I would say, right? Besides tonight.
I have no idea.
We have to do something. Find out what.
Talk about the end.
What's happened to Hank? Is he
He's online.
Okay, we're going to start with talking about the end. Chaf Bet Amud Bet. And 2, 4, 6, 7 lines at the bottom.
Tana Rabbana, Neilo Shlosha Yamim, Rishonim.
Chaf Beis Amud Beis. Amra Chir Ba'ava.
Remember, I was gone last week.
Right.
Al-Amakim Kulan.
Right,
No.
correct.
Yes, right.
Correct. So, Chaf Bet Amud Aleph and Amud Bet is a list of different halachot that apply to Avelut, and many of them are very pertinent relevance. Not all of them we do, such as we talked about. Trying to remember now. Well, none of them we do, such as how long you have to wait to a haircut, and what Simchas Moreus meant, and so forth. One thing that we don't do is cholate. We don't bare our shoulder.
Right.
Which apparently they did. Correct. So this is another in the list here. V'amrav Chibrab Yochanan Al Kol Mesim Kulam Mi Bifnim Alav V'Yalimo Korea Mi Bachutz. Okay, two interpretations.
Yeah.
What it means. Bifnim, obviously Bifnim means inside, Bachutz means outside. So it means either that they're ripping outside where everybody can see, or rip it inside where nobody sees it.
Yeah.
Referring to the audience, the place, location.
Right.
So, and that would make sense that you for all other relatives, which the sadness is not as great, you can do it inside. It's a private thing. For parents, where it's exhortative, it's pathos, it's ultimate sadness, you do it outside. The other approach is probably more logical, and that is bifnim is inside the garments and bichutz is outside. And this goes in line with what we saw before, that the garment for the amount of garments one has to rip for a parent is all the garments, all the not undershirt, but real garments all the way through. Whatever garments you're wearing, as outer garments have to be worn, even if there are multiple layers. So, for example, a shirt and a jacket would both have to be ripped. With a relative, it's simply one garment. Other relatives is one garment. So this might be a corollary of that, to say that one can even choose the garment underneath. With a parent, it's all the garments, including all the way out to the outside. Okay. So this is Rav Chibra Abba, Rav Chisda v'chein l'nasi. And Rav Chisda says the same thing would be that for the death of a nasi, that everybody is korea mi bachutz, either whatever it means, either in a group setting or the garments on the outside, not internally. Okay, so this is the corollary of Rav Chibra Abba's statement, is even a nasi, the death of a nasi is such an ultimate sadness for every person that everybody has to be korea.
We don't have to worry about that too much today.
Correct, right. But there are Beis-Dins and others as well, for example. For example, I think, if I remember correctly, we'll come to the moment when Rav Soloveitchik died, it was Chalamoid Pesach, or the first night of the Seder. And Rav Aaron Lichtenstein said if it had been a weekday, he would have ripped Kriya. Then afterwards, after Yom Tov, you can't rip Kriya because it's after
Right, you have to cancel it.
The sadness has gone by.
Right,
it's only
right.
Shas, I guess, sadness,
Right.
not later on. Anyways, so there is an idea that a death of a great scholar does have an impact in Shuli Nasi, who is the ultimate leader. So Gemara says, Mesid, about 2, 4, 6 lines at the bottom. Meisvei says the Gemara, the question, so the Gemara quotes a part of a brisa that says that your teacher, of Beis-Din, the head of the court, and the Nasi are only equated to a parent, le'ichel bavad, to say that you can't sew up the rip that you made. So the Gemara says, does this not mean my love afila lenasi? So when it says, when they're the listing the people who it's comparing to Avi v'Imo, and it seems to say the only thing that they're compared to Avi v'Imo is about not sewing up the garment, it looks like it includes the Nasi, who is also found in that Mishnah. So, sorry for the interruption. So at any rate, That's so they go to shul. They're not.
Read the Torah.
It's an unusual kind of situation because they're not davening. They seem to daven according to Rashi in the house by biyachidas, or I said others say they're davening in the house of the Avel, and then they finish reading the Torah and v'yotzim they go out. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha Omer, when they go out, lo sheyelchu v'yitaylu bashuk. They're not going out to wander around. It's not like a day to go shopping. Ella yoshvim v'domim, but they sit and they're sitting quiet. They're silent. They've been silenced. It's a day of communal mourning. V'eino mim shmua v'agada b'veis ha'evel. And this looks like it's something else.
Right.
You don't say learning. This actually goes back to the weekdays in a house of Avelis. And some people say this even means in Shabbos in the house of an Avel, which is a big chiddush.
Shmua and Agada are two different things.
So Shmua is learning. Shmua means learning. That's learning halachic learning, and Agada is non-halachic learning. So in other words, you're not doing any learning in the house of the Avel, even though our minhag, as you know, we do learn. Right? We learn between Min Chamar of many cases, and the reason we do that is we're doing it as kavod, either le'ili nishmas the niftar, or kavod for the niftar. So that's how we get around this halacha. And as you see, it in and of itself is a machlokas. Okay, so for one person did. Okay. So at any rate, we tend to do that in the house of the Avel. And by the way, the question is: does he mean during weekdays, or does he mean on Shabbos? When it talks about Rav Chananya ben Gamliel saying Shmua Nagad in the Beis Ha'Evel, so is the topic that you don't learn in the house of the Avel on Shabbos, but he did, which means during the weekday no one says you do, or you don't do it on the weekday, but he said you could do it on the weekday, but everybody would say you could do it on Shabbos. So that's the different approaches, interpretation of what the line in the Gemara is. Okay, now told you that we're going to get into the back way of trying to about moving location in Avelis. Tana Rabbanan, Avel, Shabbos Rishona. The word Shabbos sometimes means Shabbos. In this case, it means not Shabbos day, but the week. The week. Okay. Shabbos Rishona ena yotzei Pesach Beiso. So the first week, he doesn't leave his house. Why doesn't he leave his house? Shiva. Right?
Yeah,
okay.
Something
going on. So eno yotzei Pesach Beiso. Shnia yotzei ve'eno yoshev b'mkomo. So second week he goes and he goes to shul and he doesn't sit in his regular place. Third week shlishis yoshev b'mkomo ve'eno medaber. Third week he goes to shul, sits in his place, but he's quiet. This is all still shloshim. Revius harei kechol adam. The fourth week is like everybody else. So it seems to be like a progression in terms of going to shul. It doesn't exactly equal to shloshim.
So after the fourth week or during the fourth week?
During the fourth week. That's the first approach, right? It comes along Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda mer, no. Lohush v'chalomar Shabbos Rishon le'otzei mepesach beiso. Shareg hakol nechnasim lebeisol nachamo. So there's a different minhag here. You don't have to tell me the first week he doesn't go out. We know he doesn't go out. People coming in. Ella shnia eni yotzei petach beiso. So this is a very different kind of minhag. The second week he doesn't go out, and I guess the minyan still meets in his house. It's a very unusual kind of minhag.
Maybe he has to daven by himself then. No, I don't know.
Right. So it means that. Does it mean that he goes to shul or he doesn't go to shul?
No, it sounds like he can.
Right.
Right? I think that's what it sounds like. No.
He doesn't.
That's what I'm saying. He can't. He can't go to shul.
So which means the mourners would come to him for 2 weeks in a row. Okay. It's a very different minhag that we don't follow. Okay. And I'm sorry. Shabbos Rishon lo yotzei mepesach beiso. Sharei kol nachzon lebeis nachmo. Ela shnia eno yotzei mepesach beiso. Third week shlishis yotzei ve'eno yoshev b'mkomo. Okay. The third week he goes to shul. He moves his place. Revius yoshev b'mkomo ve'eno medaber. Okay. Fourth week he goes back to his place, but he doesn't really participate in talking. He's quiet. All right. V'chamishis harei kechol adam. The fifth week already. That's after shloshim. That is, he is able to be a participant. He's past the shloshim. It's talking about regular avelis for regular mourner. So we don't do this. We normally seem to divide things by avelis, by shloshim and not shloshim. Shiva shloshim and not shloshim. So, but it seems to be that this looks like to be the original minhag that the Avels eased himself back into the shul. We actually would follow halachically the first approach. The first week you're home, second week go back to shul and move. Third week you in your place and you're quiet. The fourth week you kind of reacquaint. And that's why the Rishonim say that our minhag of moving around for shloshim and finding a different place, while the minhag exists for shloshim, doesn't really have a source for it. Because the source that really comes is this source which seems to talk about the second week. Right? The other opinion, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, is the third week, but we'll assume we follow the first opinion. So one more week, your first week you go back to shul, and the second week you change places. Not an entire shloshim, not an entire year. But the minhag has become, it's like a minhag without a mokar that people move around. So much so, there's a whole discussion whether it applies on Shabbos or not.
So it's implicit in this that people used to talk in shul. Because we're saying here,
there's
don't
a minhag.
talk in shul. No?
That's a minhag that hasn't changed.
So I don't know if it means not talking shul, it means not speak aloud, not daven aloud, not participate. I don't know what it means. I don't know exactly what it means. It means what it means. I'll tell you what it means. It means that he can't speak in shul until someone speaks to him. Once they start talking to him, he can respond. Probably.
But we're taught not to speak to him first.
When would they talk?
That's when he's at home. Sure.
So, but I mean, the logic is you're easing back into the process in a slow form of way. Okay. Next halacha. Next halacha is an interesting halacha. It's about remarriage. Tan Rabbanan. Kol shloshim yom l'nesuin. The 30 days.
Married.
Well, it actually means as follows: that nisuin, nisuin, you can't marry for shloshim for 30 days.
Right.
Not the 30 days since you got married.
No, during the shloshim period.
During the shloshim period, you can't get remarried.
Sounds reasonable.
Remarriage can't take place in shloshim. It's a funny way of writing it, right? But that's what Rashi says it means.
Yeah.
Shloshim yom lachar evlo en yochel lisa isha. So kol shloshim yom linisuin means any kind of remarriage is out of the question for 30 days. There may be some remarriages take longer, but no one is going to say to remarry within 30 days. We will see there's an exception. So
but this is back in the days when they might well have had more than one wife.
No, I'm going to assume this means a monogamous. Let's assume it means even monogamous. Just because you'll see the exceptions in the moment. Right, about pruruvu, about little children, so it seems...
It's just unthinkable that a person
would imagine to get
remarried within a month of
his spouse dying.
So if you think it's unimaginable, hold on for a few lines. Hold on until we come to the story in the Gemara.
Really? Within a month of the wife?
You don't know what people said. I'm not going to repeat this year in front of them, but people were very, a month or so, maybe 2 months.
Yeah.
Right? Well, I can understand if they're little kids.
And you have no choice in the old days.
All right. Yeah. You also have to remember the idea of romantic love is not in every case, especially in the days of the Talmud. Right? It's there. First marriage, the Gemara talks about when the first marriage is dissolved, right? It's like the Mizbeach is broken. Right,
yeah. But they still had affection for their wives and husbands.
Okay. All right, let's see the Gemara. Meisa Ishto. Okay, so if his wife dies, Asur Lisa Isha. First of all, it means you can't get married for shloshim at all.
Right.
It means even if you never were married, that's what it looks like. Forget.
Yeah.
In other words, marriage is out of the question for shloshim.
Right, you're right. First
not only remarriage, marriage. The same way.
We're talking about Mesa Ishtai.
But that's the next line. But before we come to that, Kol Shloshim on Nisuin. The same way that you move around your seat for 1 week or 2 weeks in this, you can't get married for 30 days. Your own personal marriage.
Unless I think it's scheduled.
We'll see what the exceptions, okay? But that's how it starts out. First of all, forget whether you're married. Assume that you are single. You can't engage in marriage for 30 days.
I don't understand. He says, Kol Shloshim Yom
Period.
That's a period.
Then, if you were married and your wife died, it may be even longer, or maybe even shorter. But the opening stitch is talking about, in other words, all the opening, we talked about, for example, that you can sew up certain rips. When can you sew it up? After Shloshim, or you can do based it and after Shiva, you can sew it up after Shloshim. So there's certain rules that apply to Shloshim. One rule that applies is that a mourner who is in mourning cannot get married for Shloshim. Then we come to the exceptions on either side. Okay? That's what it means. So, Mesa Ishta, if you were married and your wife died, then also Lisa Isha Acheres Ad Sheyavru Lav Shlosha Regalim. So not only you can't get married for 30 days, you got to wait for 3
regalim.
It's not exactly a full year.
Exactly a year.
Depends when it is.
Yeah.
Right? Let's say right before, I don't know, Pesach, then after Sukkot.
Right after Sukkot.
Correct. Okay.
Why would that be too?
So why Shalosh Regalim? What does this really mean? Okay, what's the concept of Shalosh Regalim? So there are 3 answers.
We had this one for some other reason.
So Shalosh Regalim, I'll tell you Shalosh Regalim in a moment. Most commentaries say you need a personal period of time either to forget your wife, natural course of time, just like honoring you or her. Second of all, if you get remarried too quickly, how does the Gemara say it some places? Like there are 3 people in bed. Right, because you're still thinking about your previous spouse as you're taking the new spouse. So that's a problem building a new relationship. The third reason, though, is the reason that makes the most sense, and that is that the Shalosh Regalim concept usually is a concept of carrying out a neder. Right, Bal Ta'acher is also where it talks about 3 regalim. So there's a medrash somewhere that says that because people didn't carry out the nedarim, the punishment is their wife dies. Bavon nedar mesa ishto. Therefore,
Therefore, you should wait.
I'm not saying that. Just this is one of these gemaras. So therefore, along this kind of approach. This is the Ramban and others say that therefore it's a recognition that you didn't carry out a neder. How do you, when you carry out a neder, it should be done within Shalosh Regalim. So the way to try to create expiation or to try to kind of undo this is to wait Shalosh Regalim to get remarried.
Right.
It looks like a drash. It is a drash.
Sure.
But whatever it is, there's a longer period of time than Shloshim. Clearly a longer period of time than Shloshim. So Rabbi Yehuda Meir Regel Rishon. Regel Rishon Mesheni Aser and Shlishi Mutter. So Rabbi Yehuda says not 3 regalim, it's 2 regalim. Okay, whatever it's a period of time. Okay, so now, therefore, to get married, you can't do it when you're Shloshim.
Right.
To get remarried, you have to wait 3 regalim or 2 regalim, depending here. Vim ein lo banim. And if you don't have any children whatsoever, which means you did not carry out the mitzvah of pru uravu, and that value trumps other things. It's a primary mitzvah of existence and reproduction and survival. So if you have no children, no banim, muta lisa li altar, so you can get married right away.
Before 30 days?
Seems to be without even the 30 days, because the mitzvah is paramount. Okay, misham bittul periya v'revya. Okay, now, and hinicha labanim ktanim. Muta lisa li altar. If you were left behind as an almond, as a widower with small children, so once again you can also get married even less than Shloshim. So you have the rule, but not marrying within Shloshim. Then you have the exceptions the other way for Shalosh Regalim or 2 regalim. Then you have the exceptions the other way to get married right away. Why Mipnei Parnasasam? Because in order to looking after the children, taking care of the children.
You have to go to work while somebody looks after the kids.
You got to make parnasa, so therefore you can't stay home with the kids. There's a very male-dominated society. Okay, men went to work, women stayed home with the children. Ergo, you need to have a
wife,
a female that looks after the kids, and therefore, what would be better than a wife? Okay.
How about a babysitter?
Exactly. How's about hiring somebody for a little while?
It's not just me. It's just a few.
I don't know, whatever it is. And look, and there's actually a case that happens. Umaisa shemesa ishto shel Yosef hakohen.
That's something else, though.
Wait. The wife of
ordinary Cohen, maybe. It didn't say it's a Cohen.
No, a regular Cohen, Yosef hakohen. We don't know who it is. Yosef. I mean, Yosef is a common name. Josephus. Remember Josephus? He's Yosef. Yeah. Yosef hakohen.
I know the guy.
He obviously was a well-known story. Didn't have to identify him anymore. And in the cemetery yet, the ground is still moist. He says to his wife's sister, come and be with me and look after your sister's children. He means marry me. So you can look after your sister's children, and they get married there apparently, or they get married immediately thereafter, right?
Not at the cemetery, we assume. Yes.
We don't know. Whether it's at the cemetery, wherever it is.
They had to have some sense of.
You have to say
variety.
He proposes in the cemetery.
Proposing is bad enough.
As I said, basically, he's proposing in the cemetery. He says,
it's bad enough. I understand.
okay. But everybody's there. The rabbi's there. There's a minion there. Why not?
You're right.
You're not supposed to do mitzvahs in the cemetery.
You just have to bring a football along.
You're not supposed to do things that the
You're not supposed to do mitzvahs in front of the mason.
That's it.
That's true. Okay.
You know,
So I don't. I guess the question is getting married a mitzvah? And the answer is a mitzvah because it leads to pruruv. Correct. Okay.
So they not only got married, they tried to make a baby right there.
So, and even though he had children here, right? This is Erev al Tanach Yodecha. That how does the pasuk? The Gemara quotes a pasuk, two pasukim. One's from Mishlei, and the other's from I don't remember. Maybe also Mishlei about. Even though you planted in the morning, you kind of plant. You shouldn't leave off planting in the evening.
But he had small children.
Correct.
Point, right? So
now, v'afal pikain. Let the Gemara finish off the Gemara. V'afal pikain lo balel lizman meruba. He still didn't have relations with her for a long period of time. How long is a long period of time? Okay. So the Gemara says, "Mein lizman meruba amrav papa lacher shloshim yom."
Okay, so what he said was
he didn't wait. Correct. He didn't wait sholosh regalim. He waited shloshim yom. It's probably like a compromise for he's living with her anyway. She's in the house, so at least he waited shloshim yom before they were intimate with each other. But they were married clearly before shloshim yom. Okay.
Right after the summer.
Okay. So
that's the next question. Presumably, he couldn't get married during the shiva, could he? I guess. Yeah. I mean, forget the shloshim part for a moment. What about the first 7 days altogether?
So it looks like
Yeah.
It looks very much like yes.
Sounds like a simcha, but who knows?
Right.
Hopefully,
Tosas said
no music at the wedding.
no music. Whoever Yosef HaKohen was, I don't think there are too many cases like it.
Right. So Tosas says that the basic verse is lav dafka because you couldn't get married on Avelis when he's in Shiva, exactly as you said. And then he quotes the Rivah. The Rivah says, well, maybe it was like Erev Pesach. Erev Pesach, you sit Shiva until midday.
Right.
Erev Pesach, Shiva.
Till you stop eating hummus.
So the funeral was in the morning.
Right.
And the very same day. Right, they're in the basic forest. They're doing the Levaya at 11:30.
Right.
At 12 o'clock, it's midday. He marries her.
Wouldn't they say that though? Wouldn't they say that?
It was, yeah.
Would they not say?
Well, they don't want to give it too many details.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe
Could be any of it. It doesn't mean Pesach.
Maybe they would say.
Yeah.
It could be Sukkot. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No, it couldn't be Sukkot because every other Yontif, the Avelis goes until the actual Yontif.
Yeah.
Pesach is until the middle of the day.
Erev Pesach.
Erev Pesach, the Avelis actually ends at Chatzos. And in fact, I think I've talked about this. That people say, for example, Friday or Erev Yontif, Avelis ends at midday. It's not true. Avelis ends at the Shabbos, or suspended at Shabbos, or ends at the Yontif, except that you're allowed to have enough time to get ready for Yontif or Shabbos. That's a preparatory exemption, but the actual Avelis is going until that point. But Erev Pesach, because in the afternoon they were already taking the Korban Pesach, it's a separate halacha. So the Avelis on the Erev Pesach ends the Shiva. The Avelis, the Shiva ends at midday on
Okay,
Erev
and
Pesach.
afterwards is the Shloshim starts.
Shloshim is not cut off at Pesach. No.
Shloshim continues.
No. Correct. All right. So this was the whole thing about getting married. It's kind of interesting, right? For us, it's kind of hard to understand, but you know what? These were difficult times.
Well, the rules still apply in terms of.
Right.
I mean, it could happen today. That's when the wife dies, right?
Correct.
Or you're single, like you said. No, but today, if you're single, you're shloshim, you can't
Correct.
get married, I presume.
There are people, as you probably know, a second marriage or third marriage, who get married because they don't want to be alone. Right? It's not necessarily sexual. It's not reproductive. It's simply for companionship, and that's also that's a valid reason.
Absolutely.
Right? So I used to. I think I've told you many times that when I was a teenager, I had a my landlord was a Rebbe downstairs.
The whiskey air place.
Right, the air place of whiskey. So actually, he would call me many times. He'd call me down for very unusual kinds of things. Every once in a while, there'd be someone who wanted to get married, like an old couple, and they'd come to him because they didn't want to legally get married for the state. Because of the tax laws and the inheritance and everything else, it's, so we tzvei alta mention, and he'd gather together, cobble together a minyan. He'd have a portable chuppah with 4 poles, say the brachas, and everybody was happy, and we all go down. So who's he going to call for this? Who's hanging around who doesn't mind coming down? He would call people like me who were over bar mitzvah kids and the teenagers who he knew he could count on. So a number of times we saw this. Once I saw chalitza. So chalitza was done down there, so it was very fascinating. So and it was a small group, so you really could see. Sometimes when chalitza is done, they call a lot of people. It's hard to see everything. So, anyways, yeah, and he would sell the whiskey to the guy. He would sell, he would give it to the guy. Right. He was makbid. He never kept real chametz mamish. So all the cakes and pastas and breads and all the flour, they would actually pour right into the fire. It was in a garbage can. And then he would sell the chametz to the guy for other people, not his own chametz. He would sell maybe taruvas chametz he would sell for himself. And he would, and look, remember this is a shtibel, so people always bringing mashka.
Right.
So he would give the guy all his whiskey. And the guy would leave. Well, the guy was one of the janitors in the apartment building. The guy would walk down. This for a kid, this stands out. The guy's walking down the street with 2 shopping bags clanking along. So, at any rate, yeah. Okay, it was very unique, a very unique existence because we were real misnagdim. So a very symbiotic relationship. Okay, and he respected that, and he respected us as tenants too. Okay, so we're up to about cleaning, about ironing or laundering. Tanrabanan kol shloshim yom legihutz. So for 30 days you cannot launder your garments. What they translate as ironing.
I know. I just using the word gihutz today.
So gihutz,
in modern Hebrew, but I think.
Right, but gihutz is like ironing after you really have washed them well, right? As opposed to rinsing them out. So it's a much more, I guess, comprehensive kind of cleaning than especially they did in those days. Which the cleansing process was fairly primitive. They did not have detergents. They had something called Nesser, which was minerals inside the earth. It's kind of funny washing your clothing with dirt, right? But the dirt had certain clear minerals or certain compounds that were not just abrasive but had cleansing powers.
Rav Steinsaltz says in Girsot, he says gichutz u'makor rabim gichutz, not gihutz.
Okay. I don't know what
I know, but I'm just saying I wouldn't have said ironing if the word was gichutz. So apparently,
says ironing or pressing, but then he says someone else translates as bleaching. I don't know who this guy S. Krauss. I don't know who that is.
Okay. S. Krauss wrote a dictionary in German. Okay.
Oh, okay. So maybe that's it. Tells you TA1, whatever page.
Right. So kol shloshim yom legihutz echad kelim chadashim v'echad kelim yishanim. So it really means it's not just pressing. It means going through a process. The garments are cleansed and then pressed. A real, like what we call dry cleaning. So you can't press garments whether it's you can't wear pressed garments whether it's for new garments that are coming off pressed or even echad kelim yishanim. Whether it's new garments that were just coming off, just made and pressed, or it means old garments that were coming from Mechabesh, from this process where they would cleanse them and then they would iron them as well.
It says here something else. It says in the end, it says after bleaching, the clothes were put in a press.
Okay.
Krauss says this also. I guess some kind of.
I'm saying it's not the press that's the problem.
Yeah,
it's the cleansing process that puts it into a press, which means it's really schmancy cleaning.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first approach says whether it's new garments or even old garments that have been re-cleaned, like a dry cleaning. Rabbi Omer lo asvel kelim chadashim balvad. Rabbi says it's only new garments. And Rabbi Rabbi Shimon Omer lo asvel kelim chadashim lavanim balvad. So it's not just new garments that were prohibited. New garments were okay, but new white garments were prohibited, because new white garments, I guess that's the bleaching. New white garments really need to be cleansed well, otherwise they would the stains would show up. The same way today that you don't want to wash whites with colored. Abaye nafak begarda de sarbala. This was a Rebbe. He followed the opinion of Rabbi that said, who's Rabbi? That it's only new garments. Garbala sarbala was, Rashi says, a white garment that was pressed, a white old garment that was pressed. So therefore Rebbe says it only applies to new garments. So he had this schmancy white garment that had been worn before, that had gone to the cleaners. He wore it even when he was in Avelis. Okay?
Right.
Rava nafak bechimutzta rumisa sumkasa. Okay, this is Chadati, Chadash.
Has a comma after Chadati.
Yeah, Chadati is Chadash.
Yeah.
So Rava used to go out with chimutza, is some kind of like a tunic. Rumisa was a Roman, and Sumkasa is, I believe, red. Chadati new. So we would go out with a brand new Roman red tunic. And whose opinion did he follow? Rabbi Shimon, who says the only new garments that are prohibited are new white garments. So you see that there were different opinions, and different Amoraim followed different people.
So but just had an expensive red Italian suit.
Red Italian suit is exactly what he had.
But so are we saying, again, generally the halacha, I mean, even though there's a whole bunch of different opinions, are we saying, as far as cleaning, laundering, I don't know, and ironing, or whatever word you want to use, your old garment, is that allowed or not allowed?
So I think we say no.
No.
But it's
of any color, of any kind, of whatever, right?
I think so.
That's new. That's old ones. And what about new ones? Even
Sure. Yeah. Correct. Right. All right. Laundering and ironing. Okay. What do I do without the book? Okay. Excuse me. Here we go. All right. So there's the two parts. One is during Shiva. During Shiva, you can't wash or iron clothing. It means even laundering without soap and detergent. Even if the intent is to wear the clothing only after Shiva. Others can't do it for you as well. And maybe if you took the clothing to the laundry before you became an Avel, then they can launder it in the usual way. The same way you can't launder it, you can't wear newly laundered clothing. So first of all, the Avel can't do it, and second, we can't wear clothing that was newly laundered. You can't go launder blankets, sheets, and pillowcases, towels, napkins, handkerchiefs. The exception is if there are two Tokfa Veloso, there are two Shivas in a row. Then you can wash your clothing. Once again, it's only with water. We had this more earlier on, right? If the clothing is soiled by sweat or it's infested, so then you can change clothing because the prohibition is only clothing for pleasure. Children can change their clothing and wash their clothing, and so can a nida during shloshim. So after Shiva, the mourner is permitted to launder and iron his own clothing in order to wear them after the shloshim. So he can do the laundering, but he can't wear them after the shloshim. Likewise, he may iron and launder for others. However, during the shloshim, he's not permitted to wear newly laundered or ironed clothing, except under the conditions set forth below, okay, which we'll see in a moment. Some permit him to launder clothing during shloshim in order to have someone else put them on first and then wear them themselves. Others forbid this. So no, someone wears your clothing, breaks them in, the clothing that you get is not newly laundered. How long does the person have to wear it for? Doesn't really say. 5 minutes, yeah. After Shiva, the mourner is permitted to wear clothing which was laundered by someone else in water without soap and detergent. If the clothes were laundered with soap or the laundering agents, the custom is to forbid wearing them throughout the shloshim. However, someone else first put them on for a short time, and we just saw this. One authority writes that a newly laundered garment whose purpose is to absorb perspiration, such as an undershirt, may be worn without having someone else put it on first. Okay, probably makes sense. No, there are probably people who are makbid not to even do that. I don't know what that means. Have other people wear their clothing.
Yeah, outside garments.
No, undergarments.
I guess the implication.
You know what? If you will go to your standard yeshiva today, before Rosh Chodesh Av, you'll find the boys are in their rooms and they're putting on all their undergarments for the next 9 days. Right? And that's the same thing, because the same law that applies to Novel applies for the Avelis of the 9 tag. Now,
you just drop it on the floor.
You do this?
Just to
You do this at home?
drop it on the floor and you step on it, and then you can put it on.
I never heard of that.
Not freshly laundered, you mean?
There's no knob for you. You drop it on the floor.
That's a very clever. It's a very clever idea. No one ever told that to me. Most people who don't do that. Most people who don't do that rely upon the fur. Okay, most people who don't do that rely upon the two things. First of all, undergarments are really not garments. They're meant to absorb sweat. They're not really a garment. You would not be, you would not walk out. Maybe some people in our society would walk out, but no, right? Whereas they have the day when they all wear their underpants in the TTC, right? There's
some
sort of day where
I missed that.
It's your city, okay?
I missed that.
Yeah, once a year.
It's a shul I don't go to.
Right.
Go.
So, I'm making it up.
I believe
okay? They wear everything, but they're not wearing pants. Okay. So at any rate, but you and I would not normally do that. And the other thing is whether, for example, like shirts, which could be laundered today because they're permanent press, and they don't go to cleaners. Is that kind of washing really considered the same as the gihuts of the Gemara? So that's the other discussion. In other words,
but if you're talking about, let's say, a suit during the
for example, a suit.
You have a suit that wasn't freshly laundered. It's been there for, you wore it once before.
Then you wore it once before.
Then you can wear it.
Then correct. It's talking about freshly laundered.
Right.
Freshly laundered. You took it out of the laundromat, not laundromat, the cleaners.
Right. Your shirts are normally.
Or your shirts, correct.
They're usually freshly laundered.
That's right. If they're freshly laundered, it may apply to shirts too. One more piece here. The mourner is forbidden to wear new clothing during Shloshim. If the mourner is for one's parent, the custom is not to wear new clothing during the first 12 months. If it is necessary to wear new clothing, it's permitted if someone else first wears them for 2 or 3 days. Wow. Okay.
Usually just try them on and walk around the house.
Yeah, but this is pretty serious. This is for parent.
It's for parents.
It's permitted to buy a used garment or have it remade to fit the mourner. That's unusual kind of halacha. But if this used garment would give you so much joy, you still can't wear it. If the new garment is the kind whose purpose is to absorb perspiration, right, they may be worn after Shloshim for sure, and this does not apply to shoes. You can wear new shoes during the 12 months.
You buy a used garment for yourself?
No, it's not, what do you mean used garment for yourself?
You're buying your used shirt for yourself.
You never wore it.
Oh, used meaning worn.
It means someone else wore it.
Meaning someone used it and washed it.
Yeah,
no,
it means you've used it before. Not new.
And of course, you can get new eyeglasses on the year of mourning, even if you already have enough eyeglasses. All right. And you can buy, and a novel can buy new utensils and furniture, and someone else doesn't have to sit in them first. So that's the halach in terms of Avelis. Okay. This takes us up maybe to 9:30, and we're going to talk about next a different topic. It's about Shabbos. The Shabbos included in Avelis or not included in Avelis? What are we looking at? How do we consider it? And that's really going to take us for Chaf Gimel all the way until the mission of the Chaf Gimel base. All right. So we assume that Monday night we're on. Okay. Monday night is Chol Moed.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yontif is Shabbos and Sunday.
Exactly.
Right. Monday, if you're going to work, you don't all the catch up on the weekend that you lost to do all the stuff you want to do Saturday, Sunday afternoon, but should be okay. Make sense? Okay. Good. Very good. Have a Chag Kosher V'Sameach and Kosher Pesach.